So when it comes to bike maintenance, there's some pretty obvious things you need to do, like replacing the tire when it starts to go bare, or replacing the brake pads when you start to hear metal scratching on metal, which, by the way, you should never get to that point. But there's some other things that need replacing on a routine basis that are not quite so obvious. One is the chain. You normally think of a chain as something that lasts forever. It's metal, right? No, it wears out. And it's actually really critical for the ability of your bike to shift that chain be stiff. I typically replace mine once a year, but I put in a lot of miles. The other thing that needs replacing is this cassette. It gets a lot of wear, and when these gears get worn, it doesn't shift well. So I just replace them once a year. There's a couple tools you're going to need to do this. If you don't have the tools, you can't do it. End of discussion. You cannot make do with a screwdriver and a hammer. You're going to need two things. One is, this is called a chain wrench. It's for wrapping around here so you can get a good grip on that cassette. The other thing is a cassette removal tool. Let me show you what these look like. It's got these splines that you stick in. Now I have 5 different bikes right now and 4 different tools. And they're all for Shimano. So you have to be careful when you get the tool that you get the right one for your bike. And now let's talk about how to get these replacement parts. A chain is not a chain. You cannot just put on a generic chain. You have to get the right one for your derailleur. So look closely at your derailleur. This is a Shimano Ultegra. Google it and find the right chain for that. This is actually a 6500, which makes a difference. There's a 6700, different chain. So Google really carefully to get the right. And then also with the cassette, if you look carefully, right here is written what kind of cassette it is. You need to get the exact replacement. So now we're going to go ahead and take this cassette off. So we're going to take our tool, we're going to take the skewer off, okay? Now we're going to take this and put it in there. It's going to fit perfectly. So what that's going to allow us to do is twist this nut the opposite direction from the cassette. And we're going to put the skewer nut back on to keep that nut from coming out. Not all the way. Leave it about 1/8 of an inch loose. Okay, so now we take our chain wrench and our wrench. So they're going to turn opposite directions. There's an arrow on here that tells you which way to go to the tighten, so you do the opposite for loosening. And voila. So you just need to get it to go the first little bit. The rest you can do by hand. So we're going to take our skewer out. And we're going to put it back on so we don't lose those little springs. Now we're going to do this carefully here. So we're going to hold this and remove the nut. Now these are on here loose and there's spacers between them. So just in case there's a problem, take it off very carefully so that you can put it back on exactly how it was. Let me show you what this looks like. So you can see there's a bunch of individual sprockets in there and spacers. So we're going to keep that all together in case we did not order the right part. So here's what I ordered, the CS6700. And again, when I take this apart, don't just rip this open because little parts will go flying all over and it's a pain to get it back in the right way. But you can do it because it's actually keyed, so you can't put it on the wrong way. But you know, don't push your luck. So I'm going to carefully take this out of the plastic. So you carefully take this off, keeping everything in the right order, and then you go around till you find, remember this will only go on one way. So once we get it on, we'll put on the lock ring. But remember, we kept our old one very carefully in the right order, so if we have any question whether this one's on right, we have the old one to look at to make sure all the spacers, because some of these actually don't have spacers between, so just do as it was before. So we're going to put this on. Now we're going to need this little widget again to tighten it, but this time we don't need the chain wrench. Now it says 10 Newton meters to tighten this. If you're not sure, just make it snug. You don't need to give it a death spin. That's good enough. It's not going to come undone. There you go. Now we have the new cassette on, beautiful new cassette. Don't replace a cassette without replacing the chain. Replace them both together. They wear together. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's get our chain off. Sorry, there is one more tool you're going to need. A chain tool. Again, you can't do this without. Actually, you could take the chain off with a punch and a hammer, but there's no way you're going to get it back on reliably. So we're going to go ahead. We're not going to reuse this, so we don't care too much. So you put it over any link. I'm not going to bother finding the link that was used to put it in, and we're going to break the chain. Push that pin out. And we're going to keep this chain because we want to know exactly how long it was, because that's how long we're going to make the replacement chain. Now, as far as the replacement chain, again, you need to make sure it's the right one for your derailleur. Again, Google it and get the right one. This is a 10-speed chain because there's 10 gears in the cassette, and it's a hyperglide. So this is the chain I'm going to use. So we're going to take this chain off and use it for a measurement reference so we get the right length of chain. But before we do that, this is a good opportunity to clean up the bike, because there's a lot of stuff that's really hard to clean when the chain's on. So I'm going to just clean this up before I go ahead and put the chain back on. So this is an important time to bring up discussion of Zen and the art of bicycle maintenance. If you're in a hurry and you just want to get it done, everything is going to go wrong. On the other hand, if you enjoy the process and love learning about how your bike works and making it clean and perfect, you're going to enjoy yourself and it's going to be a much better job. So get that cup of coffee and have a good time working on your bike. So I've got it all clean now. It's time to put on the chain. But remember I was saying how the chain wears? So I want to show you something. So let me compare. This is the old chain. So if I hold it sideways and bend it, I can basically, I can almost bend it in a circle like that. It's really loose. Now if I take this new chain, that's as far as it goes. Much stiffer. And the reason that's an issue, the way your bike shifts gears is the derailleur takes the chain and pushes it to the next gear. Well, if the chain's like a wet spaghetti noodle, it's not going to be able to shift. You need a stiff chain. So that's why we replace the chain. Now, a couple points. When you take the chain out of the box, there's this little itty-bitty package of pins. This is what you put the chain together with. Do not lose these. these are reinforced pins, you need them. The other thing, it comes with instructions. Take 5 minutes and read them. It explains everything. You can't just slap the chain on. There's a right direction, a wrong direction, and you don't want to blow it. So the first thing we're going to do is measure it and make it the right length. So we're going to lay them side by side here. And I'm going to, it looks like I just need to take off one length. So I'm going to use my tool and make it shorter. If you're not sure, just take off one length at a time until the chain is the right length. You don't want to take off one too many. Okay, so I'm going to pop that pin out. So now the chain's the right length. We're going to put the wheel on and we're going to make sure the chain is the way we want it. So we're going to route it around here, around the cassette, through the derailleur, and then we're going to pull it and make sure that looks exactly like we want. We don't want to make any mistakes here. So once we're convinced this is right, the right path, I'm going to take it off this front sprocket so that it's loose. And then I'm going to just temporarily stick something through there, because in the instructions they show you pictures about what is the right way and the wrong way. For example, on this particular chain, there's writing on the chain that says Shimano and so forth. That needs to be facing outward. So we're going to verify that. And it's also important which direction this link is for maximum strength. So they have a little diagram here that shows which direction is right and which direction is wrong. So without holding this tool in our hand and trying to hold the chain, we're going to look at it carefully and make sure it's right. Okay, it's right. So now we're going to read the directions on how to do these links. You'll notice there's a lot of read directions here. You got to read the directions. Every chain is different. If you're a pro bike mechanic, you can get away without it. Now there's 2 of these links. We're going to save one to put on the road, because if the chain ever breaks, it shouldn't, but if it does, you want to use one of these to repair it. So we're going to save that. Now, again, I've read the directions, so I know which way to put this in. So I'm going to go ahead. Okay, so now it's ready to push in. You want it, when you push it in, again, there's directions, but you want it to look exactly like the others. You want it, the link flush. I'm going to watch very carefully. I don't want to drive it too far in. That's pretty close. Now, this is break off. So you see this sticking out? That breaks off with pliers. So I'm going to go ahead and break it off and then do the final setting. Very easy. Now I'm going to look at it and make sure the same amount is protruding from each side. It's easy to see because it's dark. It should be flush on both sides. Okay, I need to push it a little further in. Just go a little at a time till it's even on both sides. Okay, we're almost done. The last thing I'm going to do, the chain comes with some nasty grease on it, so I'm going to wipe all that off with a rag that has some paint thinner on it. And then I am going to put on my favorite lubricant, which is a wax base. This isn't oil, so it doesn't collect the dirt as much. So we're going to go ahead and put this back on the chain ring. And we're going to oil it. Now, if you haven't done this before, it may seem tedious, but it's not. We're going to just put a drop on every link. It's not as hard as it sounds. Just take your time. So there we have it. New cassette, new chain, good as new. I'm ready to go on my bike ride. I'm going to give it a tune-up later. We'll do that in a separate video. Thanks for watching. Bis nächste Mal. Auf Wiedersehen.